Thank you for inviting me to the Paris Hepatology Conference today. I would like to start by stating that I have no conflict of interest. So the conference today will be on the effect of air pollution on the liver, and in particular on liver cancer. But I will start with a general introduction of the effect of environmental pollutants and actually the exposome on liver diseases. First, concerning pollution, it is important to state, using here a figure from WHO, so it's important to state that actually the majority of the, well, not the first determinant of mortality worldwide is in fact total pollution. It's actually before tobacco smoking and a number of infectious agents. It is also important to state that within total pollution, air pollution is probably the most important factor influencing total pollution. 7 million deaths per year from air pollution worldwide. I would like to have some introduction on what we call the exposome, because this has now influenced a lot of work on environmental health. The exposome was defined by Chris Wilde as all life course environmental exposure from prenatal period onwards. So it includes a number of exposures, a wide number of exposures, and also it includes the whole life. What have affected us during the fetal life will also be relevant for later diseases. Then, after Chris Wilde defined the exposome, different authors have made it a little bit more concrete, and like Rappaport, for example, has insisted on all the analytical studies that one can do on the internal chemical environment in blood and urine. There is also a more toxicological vision, coupling exposure and biological effect, and in toxicological vision that is including what's happening in the environment in addition to what's happening on human health. There are many chronic diseases that are considerably influenced by the exposome. This does not mean that the environment or the exposome are the only determinants of these diseases, obviously not, but it has a relatively important effect. Cancers, reproductive diseases, developmental neurotoxicity, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, and of course, liver and gastrointestinal diseases are among the diseases that are influenced, although more recent work have highlighted now the influence of environment on liver and gastrointestinal diseases. So concerning liver diseases, it was known initially that, of course, this was influenced by a number of factors, including, chemicals like medical drugs, other drugs, narcotics, and alcohol, but also environmental chemicals such as contaminants, toxin, and other agents. Nutritional imbalance is an important determinant of liver diseases, as well as infectious agents. This was what actually was already known over the year. More recent studies have focused on the effect of air pollution. This is a general picture on what air pollution does to human diseases. And as you can see, it lists a number of diseases: respiratory diseases, lung cancer, for example, type 2 diabetes, some metabolic diseases, high blood pressure, stroke, other cardiovascular diseases, and premature birth. As you can see in this figure, liver actually was not mentioned because it was not clear for a long time whether liver was a target of air pollution. And this is what more recent work actually has highlighted, and I will describe first the work that has linked air pollution to a number of liver diseases, not necessarily cancer, actually mostly metabolic diseases and fibrosis, but these are conditions that are also important for liver cancer. There was this important paper done in China and including a large number of individuals, where the effect of air pollution on different outcomes has been studied, and as you can see here, particularly on the metabolic diseases of the liver, there was a clear effect of particulate matters, and particulate matters are a very important component of air pollution, but there are other components, in particularly NO2, that is really another important and critical component of air pollution. So in this study, MAFLD was linked to PM, particulate matter, and to NO2. And actually, in particular, in individuals having central obesity, having alcohol intake, smoking status, and high fat intake. So it was clear here that there was a link between different components of air pollution and metabolic diseases of the liver. So the conclusion from this study provided the fact that there was an epidemiological evidence on the potential role of ambient air pollution in MFLD, but previously it was quite limited, and now there are more and more studies suggesting this. Here, a significant association was found, and unhealthy lifestyle habits and central obesity may exacerbate these harmful effects. So what one can see here, and this is why I introduced the exposome, is that air pollution has an effect, but it has an effect that is higher when other stressors or other conditions are involved. This is why it's important to have a large picture on all the exposure. Concerning mechanistic study, now we know that there is an effect of particulate matter in rodents on metabolic diseases of the liver, as actually shown here using different colorants. And in the bottom, you can see that the particulate matter, exposed when rodents are exposed to particulate matter, there was clearly an increase in steatosis, ballooning, inflammation, and at different stages. So this is an experimental work suggesting a link between particulate matter and liver metabolic disease. Another important study showed that particulate matter led to a number of signaling pathways, notably in the liver, in particular in hepatic stellate cell, that could account for an increase in fibrosis. So not only we have metabolic changes, but also an increase in fibrosis in these experimental studies. We have done work recently, not on particulate matter, but on other components of air pollution, that is dioxin, but importantly, dioxin actually activates a receptor called the aryl hydrocarbon receptor that is actually targeted also by a number of other pollutants, and in particular polyaromatic hydrocarbons. And as you know, air pollution includes, as one major component of air pollution are polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So in this study, we show that dioxin in the presence of high-fat diet leads to steatosis and actually also to inflammation and to fibrosis, as can be shown in the pictures below concerning the accumulation of fat in the liver when animals were exposed to both dioxin and high-fat diet. You can see that there is a higher accumulation of fat. This is the picture, the graph here shows that there's a clear increase when both stressors are included. Similarly, there's also an increase in a number of cytokines reflecting inflammation, and also there is also an increase in fibrotic material exemplified by a serous red area here. And this is particularly seen when both components. Again, this is the reason why the exposome is so important on the liver. So we have seen now that there are a number of effects of air pollution components on both metabolic, fibrosis, and inflammation in the liver. Now, let me describe some recent studies, and in particularly some reviews that have assessed the effect of air pollution on liver cancer. The first one is a study combining outcomes from 6 European cohort called the ELAPSE study, linking air pollution to liver cancer. And in this study, one can see that there is a clear link between the amount of NO2, the higher the amount of NO2 in the air, the higher the hazard ratio for liver cancer. These are hepatocarcinoma in this case. And also, the higher the amount of certain particulate matter, 2.5, less than 2.5 micron, the higher the incidence of liver cancer. So this study, combining several EU epidemiological studies, actually showed that there is a clear link between air pollution components and liver cancer. Another study was done in a US cohort. Actually, in this study, the effect of mostly particulate matter was associated with a number of different cancers, including liver, breast, and colorectal, GI cancers. And just to show it in a little bit more detail, this was actually a systematic review showing that there was indeed an effect on colorectal cancer, and also an effect on an increase in liver cancer related to particulate matter present in the air. So this study is actually in line with the previous one in the EU in that matter. Okay, now there is another study, also a systematic review that has been done by Chinese colleagues, and that have assessed the effect of particulate matter on mortality from liver cancer. And in this case, what I'm showing is not the incidence, as was shown earlier, but rather the mortality from liver cancer, therefore maybe the aggressiveness of the disease. And as you can see, the conclusion from this systematic review is that there is a clear link, a clear association between particulate matter and the risk of liver cancer mortality. However, in that study, there was no clear link between the effect of the particulate matter and the incidence of liver cancer. They did not find a clear link. However, they found a link with mortality. So let me take some conclusion and discussion here. First, I think there is now relatively strong evidence of the effect of air pollution on liver metabolic diseases, both on epidemiological and experimental evidence. There is some evidence on the effect of particulate matter on liver cancer mortality. This has been reproduced in many different studies and systematic reviews. There is a possible effect on the incidence of liver cancer, but not all systematic reviews have concluded to this. However, at least 2 out of the 3 ones that I have shown you did conclude on an effect on liver cancer incidence. And now, concerning the mechanism, there are a number of mechanisms that can be associated with an increase in liver cancer due to air pollution. First, air pollution, including particulate matter, but one has to keep in mind that particulate matter are composed of a variety of chemicals that are linked to the particles. I mean, it's not only the particles themselves. First, the particles are quite diverse, but it's not the particles themselves. It's also all the organic and metallic substances that are associated with these particles that are really important. Many of these are genotoxic, therefore leading to possibly leading to mutation, and therefore may explain the effect on liver cancer, as well as some that are non-genotoxic carcinogens. For example, dioxins and furans that can be associated are not necessarily genotoxic. They have an effect on cancers that is not necessarily genotoxic. And in particular, for example, concerning this class of compounds, we have actually shown that for other cancers, not liver cancer, in particular breast cancers and other cancer, these have an effect on metastasis and the aggressivity of these cancers, which may explain increase in mortality. This has not as clearly shown for liver cancer as for the other cancer, but at least you can state that I mean, this is something that could be the subject of additional research in the future. So the conclusion is there is a link between air pollution and liver cancer, but possibly additional studies are needed to find the actual mechanisms that are involved. Thank you very much.